Ask the Mayor, your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town of Weymouth and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, here's Bob Hedlund.
And welcome back to another edition of Ask the Mayor. I'm your Mayor, Bob Hedlund, and I want to thank you for all your support today. With me today is my Inquisitor, the slimmed down version of Jim Melody. And how are you today, Mr. Melody?
Please get my title right there. It's Inquisitor / Citizen Advocate.
Citizen Advocate, a man of the people.
I'm here to represent in these questions the will of the citizens of the town of Weymouth.
And I can say I support that 1,000%. Before we get going with this edition of Ask the Mayor, by the way, it might be the April Fool's edition of Ask the Mayor, we want to speak to how you can submit your questions to our program. There has been some questions regarding how the questionnaire should be identified. Should we be using their full name? Should we be using their nickname? Some sort of pen name, pseudonym, whatever you choose to identify yourself with, the moniker you offer will be represented in the question that you ask.
And if they want to ask a question in an anonymous fashion, we're happy to do it that way too. And if you want to provide your name, as people have done, we'll mention who sent the question in.
But whichever route you choose to take, please keep those cards and letters coming to askmayorbob@gmail.com. askmayorbob@gmail.com. We do appreciate the questions. I think they've been very thought-provoking in our show today.
I just want to mention that I think this is our fourth show, and the questions have been great thus far. I like the fact that you keep me in the dark on some of them, or most of them. Makes some
for dramatic effect.
Yeah, for some spontaneity. But I think we should just revisit quickly the impetus for the show and the connection, and remind people, our younger viewers who might not know who provides the voice on the intro. I love mentioning this, and we haven't done that in a while.
We should be paying perpetual tribute. And
royalties too.
Royalties. He'll probably have his hand out and with a big smile on his face. Dana Hersey is the guy providing the voiceover for the intro that you've just watched to get to this bit of programming. And Dana, as Bob said, to those who don't know, was a legendary fixture on the Boston broadcasting scene and remains so. He still does the voiceovers for Howie Carr. But for many years, he was employed as the primary voiceover talent for TV 38. Now, that may be an obscure channel to you right now.
Not just voiceover, but on-air.
And on-air talent as well. And in fact, played a major role in our humble rendition of Ask the Mayor as a takeoff of Ask the Manager program he was heavily involved with. But for those of you who will find this hard to believe, there only used to be 5 options on your TV station, probably as recently as the mid-'70s. They had the 3 major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and then there was TV 38 and Channel 56.
You forget public broadcasting.
Well, of course, there's always,
we always will.
Like public broadcasting. Not community-based, but just PBS as you know it, or GBH as we know in Boston. But
we have Channel 25, 27, 38, 44, and 56, and then 72 popped up.
He must have better antennas than I did. That's right, antennas, not cables, my friend. Antennas that you put on top of your house or on top of your TV. In this Easter season, they refer to as rabbit ears. So if you had a better antenna, you got a few more channels. But for most of us, we only got 5. So if you did want to watch TV, you had very limited options, and this Ask the Manager program was regularly slotted on TV 38. So anybody under the age or over the age of 50 would remember this program like the kids today remember Friends or Big Bang Theory. I mean, it wasn't as popular as those primetime programs, but it was mighty popular. So that's where this all came from, and that's where we're going. And Dana being a part of our show is an amazing segue, a link to what used to happen on
kind of
TV.
weird when you think about it. So I was watching, Dana Hersey pose questions to Joe Domino when I was in high school, and he's doing the voice for this. It's pretty cool.
It is cool. So once again, we're going to dive right into it. This is most of these questions have been obscured from our mayor, and here we go. Dick Gould.
Obfuscated and hidden.
2 words that you'll never apply to your candidacy or your tenure administration. Everything's on the table, out and asked in the open. Dick Gould wants to know, Bob, my question concerns street digging and the repaving afterwards. Our streets seem to be constantly being ripped up. I understand the need for such openings, but I'm not always happy with the quality of the patches after. Some do a great job, others are very poor quality. So Dick's question is, Are there standards which contractors abide by? And who from the town checks and approves the patching? We seem to accept poor repaving much too much regarding these patch jobs.
Excellent question. It's one of the issues I raised after being sworn in with our DPW director. And I had firsthand knowledge, having maintained a district office up in North Weymouth on C Street. There was some work being done by a contractor out of Hingham. They did, forget what the underground work was being done, but he was charged with rebuilding the roadway curb to curb after that work was done in front of the office that I rented. And the road collapsed a number of times, and they came back and they did a Mickey Mouse job in patching it. Well, the road deteriorated immediately to the point where when people would pull up, they couldn't open the car door. The road had sunk so low that the door would hit the curb, you couldn't get out of your car. And the landlord was upset. The merchants and myself that were in that block of stores were upset. We made some inquiries, and we learned one of the reasons why he made half-hearted attempts to fix the road was that we did not secure a bond, performance bond, with that contractor when the work was done. So I had some questions when I came in based on that experience to our DPW director, who has informed me that he has changed some of the procedures and requirements on contractors that do work like that. So I would hope, based on that, that the situation will improve. There obviously has to be coordination, and that's something that they're focusing on as to when a street opening is allowed in relation to work that's being done. I think a good example of what Mr. Gould is talking about right now that's ongoing is we have major, I believe it's the gas company is doing major replacement work in Jackson Square. Jackson Square is all trenched out all over the place down there, and some of the patchwork is not that good. I made an inquiry prior to this question, by the way, I mean, just based on my own observance recently, as to what kind of repair work is going to get done, and I am told by DPW that that will be resurfaced by the utility curb to curb. And that's the kind of, I think, you can't always get that level of cooperation. I know in a community I represented, the town of Hingham, when I was state senator, was putting a requirement on the gas company on some gas main replacement work that they redo the street with what's known as flowable fill, which is a much more expensive way to backfill the road. And the gas company fought that, turned into a court case. And there have been court cases where certain town requirements on the utilities and patching after utility work were not allowed. So you can only go so far in pushing the utilities, but I think we can do a better job in riding herd on them that their work upon completion of main or line replacement is better.
Or the creation and retention of that performance bond sounds like something.
Well, that should be an automatic thing. That should be a given.
Sure.
And I'm told that that's something that the DPW has revamped their policies on, so that kind of situation doesn't happen.
We got to make.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Gould, I don't know if he's any relation, but a little bit of Weymouth. I know you like to sprinkle in a little Weymouth trivia.
When we can.
You look back throughout the course of Weymouth politics, one of the greatest campaign slogans of all time by any local candidates for office. Bob Gould ran for Housing Authority. Had the greatest campaign slogan. Do you remember what it was, Jim?
I can't say I do.
Don't be fooled. Vote Bobby Gould. It's a good one.
I think you'd have a challenge trying to find something that rhymes with Headland at the end of the day, but I wish you well.
I'm not looking for it.
One of my favorite political campaign slogans of all time, when I lived in Manhattan for a number of years, Mayor Koch was the mayor, and his big thing was, how am I doing? He'd always say when he'd be marching in parades, how am I doing? He'd walk around, how am I doing? I think that's a great question. It gives an opportunity for everybody to give him their opinion, and he was a good listener.
I think in a subsequent show, you will have to enlighten us more about your days in New York and what it was like as a single young man, dashing young advertising executive running around Manhattan.
Well, I had the benefit of working for a magazine that focused on nightlife and entertainment, and I concluded my career by working for Radio City Music Hall for 2 years. In between
How many of the Rockettes did you date?
I can tell you that number, give me a second, no. I can tell you my batting average was 0-0. I asked out, I think, the whole line. They went right down the line, no.
Did any of your Weymouth buddies and classmates ever come down to visit you?
On some levels, I might have as well have lived in France, because getting Weymouth people who decided to make Weymouth their hometown back then, it was difficult to get them out of their hometown. But Councillor Hargaden, who was retained a position on the town level, Greg Hargaden, was a regular visitor and did bring down a cast of characters. And my family would come down pretty regularly. But yeah, back then Manhattan was kind of a bigger, badder city. It's a lot more user-friendly these days at the end of the day.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Now, back to our
okay, here we go. Well, we're talking about interludes and entertainment. A spy reported to us, it's not an official question, this one's way off the record, that there was a headland sighting at the last Bruce Springsteen appearance as he made his way through town. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, considering that there was a school committee meeting that night,
I think we're going to a denial.
and I needed to obviously come up with an explanation, and honesty is the best policy. I consulted with other members of the school committee and told them of my predicament, and it was unanimously recommended to me by my colleagues on the school committee that I go to the show. It was a light agenda that night.
Wonderful.
And they told me I was a fool not to go, and I've had the great opportunity, being a music fan, to see Springsteen 5 times. The first time I had the opportunity to see Bruce Springsteen was because of you.
We were there together.
And I went in with our mutual friend, and that was a pretty good performance. But it took me a long time in life to see Springsteen. I never saw him back in the heyday. I gave money to a buddy of mine, actually, in high school to get me a ticket, whose friend's dad had a connection at the Garden, and they took my $10. Imagine that, $10. $10 for a Springsteen concert ticket at Boston Garden, and they used my $10 to procure a product of sorts and didn't buy my ticket. They did reimburse me, but I never
T-shirt? Springsteen T-shirt?
It wasn't a T-shirt. It wasn't a durable good. So it took me another 20 years to finally see Springsteen. So 5 times since '99. This by far was the best show. Unbelievable. The man's 60, what is he, 67?
I think 103 last time I checked.
Stamina is just mind-boggling. He played for 3 hours, 20 minutes. Other than a jumping behind the drum riser for a minute to take a swig of water or something, he never left the stage. And they never skipped a beat. The set list was great, the performance, the sound. And the rest of the guys, most of his band is up there in years too, and the stamina is just unbelievable.
Little Stevie, Max Weinberg on drums.
Little Stevie's he would be my first pick to say he's starting to show the age a little bit, but the rest of them, Max Weinberg gets up there and he just pounds away for 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Nil still playing with? Was Nil touring with him on this one?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. And they did all the old favorites. That's my big concern with seeing these older acts. They just like to do the new material. He did all the old favorites for you?
Yeah, he had a couple. Yeah, well, he did the River tour, so he opened with an outtake from the River, and they played the River out in front to start.
Wow.
And then had a whole other set of stuff that you would enjoy. My biggest beef with Springsteen, having seen him at Fenway Park, a very, very expensive ticket, I might add. I don't go to see a guy who has one of the deepest catalogs in history of recorded music get up and spend 20 minutes doing a Beatles cover. You know what I mean? I'm not here to cover the Beatles. I'm here to hear your catalog, and that's my big beef with him. He gets into that a lot. Phenomenal performer, and I don't know. I hear your wife, by the way, is a huge fan.
Am I right? From the personal anecdote file, when we did go see that show, I did bring my wife, and about halfway through it, she didn't look overly happy. She wasn't too familiar with the Springsteen catalog. Bob leaned over to her and said, "How do you like the show so far?" She looked up at him and said, "I hate country music." She hasn't been back, needless to say. But a lot of people don't realize Springsteen, who I'm not the biggest fan of in the world, but is one of the best and most prolific writers of all time, and has written hits for probably another dozen folks that you know their tunes. And he's put a lot of work out there, and nobody works harder, and nobody can take that away from him, that's for sure.
When he's on, he's on.
And you were there.
Yep.
And like Springsteen offers us all, you were born to run, baby, at the end of the day, it looks like.
We'll do another segment. We'll ask you your favorite Springsteen song.
It'll be an interesting exchange. Let's get back to some of the Weymouth residents' inquiries. Alan Wilson from Wingate Road.
Wasn't that a Weymouth resident inquiry, or was that?
That was a spy.
Oh,
We
okay,
can either
okay.
confirm or deny who that person was as well. Hey, Mayor, with regards to infrastructure appropriations,
Yes.
can you explain how road repair projects are identified and prioritized within the town? We kind of spoke to that in the past show, but if you don't mind revisiting it, because it's definitely fascinating and complex.
Yes. How they're prioritized. Or did you say funded too?
Prioritized, well, it's the appropriations of the budget. How is that actually, I guess, dispersed? It's identified and prioritized.
The way it works or the way it's supposed to work?
Well, I think we got another 15 minutes on this version.
The way it is supposed to work is obviously based on need. We don't have enough money to get as far along as we would like, and as I mentioned in a previous show, we're going to take a more aggressive approach than we have in any time in a long time, I think, in this town, between what the state provides us, which is $1.3 million a year for Chapter 90 money.
And is that consistent every year we get that insertion?
Actually, no. It's a great question. I served in the Transportation Committee. We had a major fight statewide, 200 million. We took it from 100 million to 200 million. The Baker administration actually, and then when we raised it,
That's the gross lump sum pool that everybody...
traditionally when I was in the legislature, yeah, statewide was 100 million. That's apportioned based on population and road miles is the formula. And at one point when it was raised during the Patrick administration, they refused to release the increase.
Ouch.
And it just was unconscionable because we felt budgetarily it didn't fit. And I don't understand why he did that. And upon coming in the Baker administration, the first thing they did was release that, and they've actually provided a little more.
Retroactively?
Yeah, I believe yes, retroactively. But he's lived up to that
Great.
commitment the legislature made, I think, and then some. But we expect that, so last year, the Weymouth amount was about 1.3 million. We expect that that's what that's going to be in the coming fiscal year. So 1.3 million, we're preparing in our budget this year to, in our bonding capital spending plan, we'll have about 3 million additional over the next 5 years, and we're doing some sidewalks out of free cash. And the sidewalks haven't had any attention in this town for a long time. That's a problem. So we're trying to get incrementally caught up. And I'm hopeful that there might be an additional source that we can probably announce maybe in the next 3 months or so, where we can actually significantly improve upon that in addition to what I just mentioned. The process to identify what roads, DPW has a process basically, based on input from residents, based on DPW assessments. We carry that list over every year, which streets need attention, and get to as many of those as we can. Once the street's on the list as a high priority, it'll get done, provided that there is no underground utility work scheduled anytime in the foreseeable future. So you try to coordinate that. There's nothing worse than seeing a new street paved and then a backhoe out there digging it up 6 months later. But sometimes you do have a main break, or you have an emergency situation where that's necessitated. We do have a policy. For instance, if you had a business or a developer that wanted to do something, you have a prohibition on opening up a street X number of years after it's repaved, and unless it's an emergency nature. So there's a policy in place. Sometimes I think in the past there's maybe political elements come into play, maybe, I don't know. But we're going to try to adhere to the actual policy and get aggressive about cutting that list down.
Excellent. Good news for everybody in town. Segueing from the roads to the books. I've got a library question here for you from Christine Heffernan. Christine asks, Bob, what's going on with the library? We're hearing all kinds of different rumors and elements as it relates to Tufts.
We definitely talked about this before. There's been some pretty good newspaper coverage on this. The Tufts Library is in tough condition, structurally, mechanically. As people know, last year we had the air conditioning system down, and we had to install the temporary.
You never saw anything
expensive, expensive air conditioning system. Basically, the roof is gone, the mechanical system is gone. to fix the mechanical system. We can open up the ceilings. We have asbestos up in the ceilings. So it's a can of worms just to keep the doors open short term in the next couple of years. We're looking at a couple of $1 million. And putting $2 million into that building doesn't make any sense because of the other needs that the building has. I made some inquiries. You know, this is one of the first things that hit me, one of the most frustrating things that hit me out of the gate after being sworn in. The town has never gone after any library construction grants. So we got the folks from the
Library construction, are they provided by the state or the federal government? Combination of both?
It's a state program. Other towns that I represent, we've worked with in availing of grants, Duxbury, Hingham, Cohasset, just about every other town I represent. So we brought the folks from the library board of commissioners down, and they were very helpful, giving us guidance. There's a grant round coming up that we have to really hustle to get our proposal ready, and there's a very intricate process you have to undertake. We've hired a consultant to help us through that process. You really need that expertise. The state library board requires us to hold community meetings, get focus on what the needs are, and go through that whole process. If we don't get in on this round, they don't have another cycle until 2019.
Holy smokes.
So we want to get in. We think that we're in a competitive situation based on the demographics of the town, based on what the size of our request will be. We think we'll be very competitive. But we need to make sure we get in on this round.
Yeah,
that's going to be the challenge. So Rob McLean is doing an awesome job in quarterbacking this library. So we're hopeful. And if we aren't successful in this round, I get some serious, probably, I would say the toughest decision staring me in the face on what's going to happen with our library system in the next number of years.
Well, I wish you all the best. It's an important part of the fabric of the community, and like so many others, we're down there all the time. Well, it's a perfect segue as we look to conclude another episode of Ask the Mayor. It's time for the Weymouth Citizen of the Week. And in this particular case, I want to focus on Mary Grant. Mary is a classmate of mine from Weymouth North High School in 1978, and has a PhD, who is currently the chancellor of UNC Asheville down in North Carolina. She is running the show down there and has been since August 2014.
An interesting
UNC
place.
Asheville.
I know a Weymouth person that relocated to Asheville. Actually,
We'll have to get her and Mary together, or him together with Mary. Mary previously was the president of the Mass College of Liberal Arts. We know it a little better as UMass, or North Adams State as it was, but it's now UMass College of the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts at MCLA in North Adams. Mary has a doctorate.
Alma mater of James Swift, I believe.
I know she's from that neck of the woods. I wouldn't be surprised. Mary holds a doctorate in social policy from the Hello School at Brandeis University, a master's degree in public affairs from the McCormick School of Policy at UMass Boston, and a bachelor's degree up at UMass Amherst, which is where Mary and I matriculated from Weymouth North High School in 78.
She went to UMass
Amherst after we graduated high school in 78.
And she graduated in 78.
Yes.
So, okay, she would have been out there when my friends were out there.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Was she a sorority or not?
No, it's not sorority type, but she is one of the most lovely people you're ever going to meet in your life.
Do you think she hung around on Thursday nights at Beta Kappa Phi for their $5 all you can drink beer?
I would say, in lieu of her academic success, I think we might have found Mary at the library on those evenings. I'm not quite sure.
What was she like in high school?
She's just a lovely, wonderful gal from Idlewell. She's part of that tight-knit community that represent all those Idlewell folks. And she's part of a big gang of friends and family from that neck of the woods. And a little on the quiet side, most certainly, but one of the most lovely, polite, and certainly accomplished graduates of the Weymouth school system. I don't know how many chancellors and how many that many towns can boast. And Mary's gone on to some great success. So, Mary, we salute you and your achievements, and congratulations once again. Bob, this is a handoff to you as we look to wrap up our show. What business of the week would you like to talk about?
Well, I think we were going to talk about kind of the Route 3A corridor, and we can elaborate a little more on the next show. But when you asked me that as we were going on, I was thinking about this suit that I paid $75 for this suit at Frederick the Tailor on Bridge Street, who's no longer there.
And not to be confused with Fredericks of Hollywood, I presume.
He always says that. He always said that. He goes, he was a little Egyptian guy. He would say, not to be confused with Frederick of Hollywood. I am Frederick of North Weymouth.
Another dated reference. The Victoria's Secret of the lingerie category.
$75, and hopefully you won't zoom in and pick up. It's starting to get a little warm.
I think you've done well.
I have gotten 18 years out of this.
Holy smokes.
18 years for $75 out of Frederick Patela. And I was there for the ribbon cutting when he opened with Representative Mariano.
Holy smokes.
And I was looking at the suits and I said, that's pretty cheap for a suit. He goes, yeah, it's about your size, I'll tailor it for free. So if you buy it, $75, worked out pretty good. And we wanted to talk, we'll talk more, maybe Kelly's, you got some good stuff on that corridor.
Yeah. The sand trap, let's not forget about the sand trap. Shout out to our North Weymouth buddies.
I was up there today and I had a cup of coffee, Swiss chocolate almond.
At the sand trap?
At Everyday Cafe across the street.
Yeah.
And the sand trap, we can provide a little reminiscences. Maybe the third tavern where I ever had a draught beer when I was younger.
We'll have to get back to that at some point for sure. We'll go there together. We'll share that story off camera. But as we look to wrap up, any other final thoughts and comments for the residents of Weymouth?
We love your questions. What's the email address again, Jay?
It is, once again, please askmayorbob@gmail.com. Please keep those cards and letters coming and identify yourself in any way you choose.
And what on our programming note, what do we have following the show?
I believe it's Hogan's Heroes is coming up next. So please stay tuned. Thanks for watching.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.